Welcome to Connected to India, Mr. Balji. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Penning down your entire career, or I should say your life, in a book, do we have all the stories in here, or there's still many left that didn't make the cut?
There can never be the full story, right? There's never the full disclosure, right? That's one. Secondly, is because if it's a full disclosure, I might end up in prison, because a lot of those details of the full disclosure are not provable, right? So that makes it difficult. And the third one is, of course, I'll be offending more people. Some of them are very good friends.
How have you taken the overwhelming response that you have got to the book?
I don't
Were
know
you
if that's
surprised?
overwhelming or not.
But anybody and everybody who has read the book have only said that,
maybe they are too kind. But I am in a way blessed. The launch itself was, the turnout was unexpected.
Many people would call that overwhelming. You are just being very modest.
Yeah, we are trained not to use that kind of adjectives.
Tell me, it's always a mixed feeling when you have to go back in time and write about the good and bad that you went through. What was the most difficult part, to write about the highs or to write about the lows?
You won't believe this, both were difficult. Both were difficult. Let me tackle the easier part, the low parts, right, which are quite obvious, right? You don't want to, I mean, there's the chapter there called the Tochin Chai affair, which is, he was one time our deputy prime minister, and our reporter had this story that he was driving a pickup van involved in a hit and run accident, and that red pickup van was found in a HDB flat. It's a story you can't believe, Former DPM driving a pickup van, running away from an accident site, parking in a HDB. But the reporter was so confident because the source that provided that story has always been right. So it turned out to be it was a different Tochin Chai. It was not the same Tochin Chai, right? And the reporter was sacked, and the two editors who were involved were demoted. Where was the difficult part to write was, why write it now? So I sent the first draft of the chapter to one of the editors who was involved, who was demoted. And his response was, he just let fly, right? In a way that was good, that he, I was his former editor and he was prepared to give his full reply with full of emotion. I didn't respond to him. I looked at the chapter again and I reframed the chapter. And I think it became a much better chapter after that. So that was a low point, I mean, the whole incident was a low point. And I just felt that this story has got so many touch points and so many learning points that I think our younger journalists need to know. Why did it happen? How did it happen? How we finally came out of that crisis, It was a difficult chapter to write for me,
What about the highs? When you were talking.
The highs, yeah, I think I have quite a few. And the reason I was also a bit careful in writing about the highs is because I didn't want it all to be like, I'm on an ego trip, which I was not. So I had to write it in a way, but I still felt it had to be written because the two newspapers that I really, really had a great time working for, the New Paper and Today. Today was from MediaCorp, New Paper was from SPH, Singapore Press Holdings. So I had to be very careful, how I wrote it. That I didn't come across as taking all the glory, So I had to rewrite, maybe even rewrite again the chapters, to give. And also one other thing I did, maybe unconsciously, was you would see different voices in the book, not just my voice. So I'm quoting people.
Yes.
At various stages I'm quoting people, and which I think added a certain richness to the storytelling.
There are a lot of interesting stories in the book, and some of them you've just mentioned, but one that really stands out, and I think you've spoken during the launch about that as well, is your standoff with then Prime Minister Kuan Yew. The relationship that you had with him, the way he reacted to some of the pieces that you have done. When that was happening as a young editor, journalist, were you scared that, there was the Prime Minister of the country
When
who
I
was...
made the decision, it was mainly, most of those decisions were instantaneous, without thinking. After making those decisions and after getting the reaction, yes, right? So I really felt that I would lose my job, or I might be chucked to SPH Siberia, right, which could be in the marketing department or circulation department or into sub-editing or things like that. But that's a beauty, that I think is the beauty of Lee Kuan Yew. Of course, a lot of people have, Lee Kuan Yew is either you love him or you hate him. I love him and I hate him also. So and nothing happened to me. There was one incident where I called Uma, my wife, and I told her, I think I will lose my job. But nothing happened. Why? I don't have an answer. There must be something about the man, right, that didn't do what I expected him to do.
But how important do you think it is for media to be a little distant from the
I
establishment?
think it's very important.
Yeah, to be objective, to keep their objectivity in place.
Although I don't believe in people are objective, people are always subjective, right? I think so.
Yeah, no, you're right. And
because we are human beings.
Your
right?
perceptions will always take over your judgment.
So you are total. When your son or grandson or your daughter, does something wrong, you try to also look at the positive side of that person, right? That's natural, right? So I think that but with the government, I think it is very important, because if you get swayed, or frightened or browbeaten into submission, by a government, you are not doing a service to society.
Do you think the essence of journalism has changed, or that remains intact? Because you have to be true to the story that you're telling. That doesn't change. The mediums can change, the distribution strategies can change. And that is something that is what is missing, perhaps?
I think at the core, journalism hasn't changed, even with all the different platforms, right? What has changed is the way you communicate that story, right?
Yeah.
People use terms like clickbaits and all that now. But I think, how do you write a story that will capture the audience quickly without sensationalizing it? Oh, that's not easy, If you ask me, do I want to be a journalist today? I say no. It's damn hard work, man. And you don't even know, how more or less how to do it. It's a lot of trial and error, right? And people's tastes change, and change so fast.
Yeah.
What is it? What's the flavor today is not the flavor tomorrow.
So the speed is unimaginable.
How do you keep in touch? Which means you have to go out, you have to talk to people.
Tell me, any regrets when you look back?
No real regrets, because for a person who never went to university, just after we call it the A levels, which is just before university, right? I don't know what they call it in India. We call it the A levels.
Yeah, we call it the 10+2, the 12th standard exams.
Okay.
Yeah,
12th standard. So I couldn't go to university. This was my first job, and the way I've grown, not just intellectually, but also financially. I don't think I want to think of the regrets. I'm sure there are some, but it's okay.
Thank you for this book, for writing this book, and I hope you don't become lazy like you're saying.
I will be lazy.
And you should write another one, because there are many stories that are still...
No way. Yeah, maybe I will. You never know.
Thank you, Mr. Balji, for talking to Connected to India. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.